They laughed at the principal's military ring and made jokes about stolen valor. An aging school administrator wearing an oversized West Point class ring that clearly didn't fit seemed like a fraud, but they didn't understand what the inscriptions meant or who had earned them. Not yet. They believed she was just another wannabe living off her husband's legacy until gunshots echoed through the hallways, and she revealed exactly who she really was. Before we start this video, what's the biggest thing people assume wrong about you? Share in the comments. Margaret Ironstone, 45 years old. Silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. Gray eyes, always alert. She's been the principal of Jefferson High School for 5 years, always wearing neat business suits, practical flat shoes. By all appearances, a typical education administrator, but Margaret's ring on her left hand surprises everyone. West Point Military Academy class ring, 1999. Gold-plated black onyx stone emblazoned with eagle and shield. Men's sizing, loose on Margaret's slender finger. Too big, too heavy, too flashy. Why is the principal wearing a man's ring? Probably from her dead husband. Or she bought a fake online. Must be doing military cosplay. Margaret has been hearing these whispers for 5 years. She never offers explanations, because the real story behind that ring is locked away in classified files. That Wednesday morning, Jefferson High was holding its weekly faculty meeting. 40 teachers and administrators in the conference room. Margaret sat in the front row, her West Point ring gleaming on the table. "Same fake ring as always," whispered math teacher Jessica Martinez. "Isn't that embarrassing?" "Stolen valor," replied English teacher Robert Chen. "She's not a West Point graduate," history teacher David Parker laughed. "Maybe she bought it on Amazon. $50 fake West Point ring." Physical education teacher Sarah Thompson shook her head. "I heard her husband was military, died. That's why she wears his ring." "So ridiculous," Jessica continued. "A 45-year-old woman walking around in her dead husband's military ring." "Attention-seeking," Robert added. She wanted authority, but couldn't earn it. Margaret heard these conversations but didn't react. She just quietly took meeting notes, because the real story was far more complex. That ring didn't belong to Margaret. That ring belonged to Brigadier General Margaret Stone, West Point class of 1999 graduation ring, and she'd never taken it off because embedded underneath was a classified microchip. After the meeting, there was a coffee break in the teacher's lounge. Margaret sat alone in the corner. The other teachers continued discussing her. "It's really shameful," said Jessica, lowering her voice. "It's insulting to military families." "I'm a Vietnam veteran," added elderly science teacher William Hayes. "I can't stand this kind of fake military gear." Margaret continued drinking her coffee, but William's words affected her. She didn't want to disrespect veterans. "Margaret," Sarah Thompson called out, "are you going to say something about that ring?" Margaret looked up. "About what? Why do you wear a West Point ring? You're not a graduate." "How do you know I'm not a graduate?"
"Because," Robert interjected, "West Point graduates don't hide it. They'd put it on their resume." "Maybe I don't want to put it there." Jessica laughed. "Come on, Margaret. That ring clearly doesn't belong to you." "It's too big." Margaret slowly stood up. "Maybe it's not too big. Maybe you're thinking too small." William looked sternly at her. "Young lady, military service is a serious matter. If that ring isn't yours, you should take it off." Margaret turned to William. "Mr. Hayes, which unit were you with in Vietnam?" 82nd Airborne, 1971 to 1972. "Combat role?" "Yes." "Infantry?" Margaret nodded.
Thank you for your service. Thank you. But you didn't answer. Where did that ring come from? Margaret hesitated, then made her decision. William, I respect you, but this topic is classified. Classified? Robert laughed. You're a school principal. What's classified? Just then the school's intercom began blaring. Emergency bell. But not the normal fire alarm. This was a different signal. Lockdown alarm. Attention all staff and students. This is a code red lockdown. This is not a drill. Please secure your locations immediately. The teachers began to panic. What does code red mean? Jessica asked. Margaret's face changed instantly. The calm educator expression disappeared, replaced by a hard military bearing. Active shooter, she said in a definitive voice. Everyone to positions. Margaret, Sarah asked, trembling. What do we do? Margaret locked the lounge door, closed the curtains. I'll assess the situation. You remain here. Where are you going? Robert asked. To locate the source of the threat. William was surprised. You can't go out. Protocol says everyone stays in lockdown. Margaret looked at William. William, what did you do in Vietnam during enemy contact? Eliminate the threat. Exactly. Margaret pulled a small radio from her pocket. Military issue, different from school radios. Control, this is Eagle Nest, requesting status update. Static crackling, then response. Eagle Nest control. Single shooter main building, armed with AR-15 and pistol. Estimated 12 minutes until SWAT arrival. The teachers were shocked. Margaret, Jessica whispered, who are you? Margaret turned off the radio. I'm Margaret Stone, Jefferson High principal. No, William said firmly. Civilians don't use military radios. Who are you really? Margaret was silent for a moment, then looked at her West Point ring. Brigadier General Margaret Ironstone, U.S. Army. Retired. Complete silence in the room. I served 26 years in the Army. 4 deployments, Afghanistan and Iraq. West Point class of 1999. Strategic Operations Director at the Pentagon. Robert's mouth fell open. You're a real general. Retired general. Now I'm a school principal, and I need to protect 300 children. Margaret picked up a tactical pen from the table. Not a normal pen, a self-defense tool, then pulled a small blade from her shoe. William, Margaret said, you're coming with me. You have combat experience. Margaret, I'm 73 years old. Age doesn't matter. Training matters. Margaret walked toward the door. Everyone else, stay here. Doors locked, lights off, silence. Margaret, Sarah called out. Can't we wait 12 minutes? SWAT is coming. Margaret turned. Sarah, in 12 minutes, the shooter can kill 50 children. I can't allow that. Margaret and William left the lounge. The corridor was silent, but screaming could be heard in the distance. William, Margaret whispered, you take the left flank. I'll approach from center. Margaret, we're unarmed. You're unarmed. I'm not. Margaret pulled a small Glock from her belt. Compact concealed carry. William was amazed. A school principal carries a gun? A retired general carries one. Moving down the corridor, Margaret's movement style changed. She was no longer walking like a school principal. Tactical advance, wall to wall, corner checking, professional military movement. Jesus, William muttered, you really are a soldier. When they reached the first classroom, crying could be heard from inside. Margaret tested the door handle. Locked. Good. Children, Margaret said quietly through the door, this is Principal Stone. Stay quiet and hidden. Second classroom, empty. From the third classroom came screaming. Margaret opened the door. Inside, 25 students were hiding under the teacher's desk. Their teacher, Miss Rodriguez, was in a panic. Rodriguez, Margaret whispered. Status. Principal Stone. Shooters in the main hallway. Shots fired. I think someone's hurt. Margaret nodded. Keep students hidden. Help is coming. When they reached the fourth classroom, there was ominous silence. A very bad sign. Margaret slowly opened the door. Inside was a horrific scene. The shooter was there, 17 years old, dressed in black, AR-15 in hand. 6 students cowered in the corner, terrified. The shooter saw Margaret. Who are you? Margaret raised her hand's calm voice. Principal Stone, I want to help you. No one helps me. Everyone hates me. I don't hate you. The shooter was confused. You're just a principal. I'm not just a principal. Margaret slowly moved forward. I was a soldier. I understand your pain. You don't understand anything. The shooter aimed at Margaret. William panicked behind her. I understand, Margaret continued calmly, feeling alone. Feeling angry. I've experienced those feelings too. You never killed people. Margaret stopped. Actually, I have. The shooter faltered. What? I killed 47 enemy combatants in Afghanistan. I served in war. I've seen death. You're lying. Margaret showed her West Point ring. This ring doesn't lie. I was a brigadier general. The shooter was confused. Principal, general? Both. And now I want to help you. Margaret took one step closer. The shooter's focus scattered. Why would you help me? Because I believe people can change. I believe you can be a good person. The shooter's hand began to shake. I don't know. Margaret took the final step. Within arm's distance. Give me the weapon. Let's talk. I can't. Margaret's voice soft but commanding. Son, give me the weapon. That's an order. The power of authority worked. The shooter slowly lowered the AR-15. Margaret immediately acted, disarmed the shooter with a professional move. Weapon secured. Shooter on the ground. Controlled restraint. William, call 911. Tell them threat neutralized. 6 students safe. No casualties. Mission success. 10 minutes later, the SWAT team arrived. Scene secured. Shooter in custody. The SWAT team leader approached Margaret. Ma'am, we heard you disarm the subject. Correct. Military background. Brigadier General, U.S. Army, retired. The SWAT leader nodded respectfully. Outstanding work, General. In the school courtyard, 300 students and staff were safely evacuated. Parents arriving, media gathering. Margaret briefed the police. Jessica Martinez approached cautiously. General Stone. Margaret looked up. Just Margaret. We owe you an apology. About the ring. About everything. Margaret smiled faintly. Apology accepted. Robert Chen joined them. Margaret, why didn't you tell us about your background? Because I'm retired. I wanted to leave my past behind. But today the past became necessary. William Hayes walked over. General Stone, I served under Army officers in Vietnam. Never seen better leadership. Thank you, William. Sarah Thompson tearfully approached. Margaret, you saved all those kids. We all saved them. Team effort. Later that evening, Margaret sat in her office. On her desk were newspaper headlines. School principal reveals military past, stops shooter. Her secretary knocked. Principal Stone, there's a call for you. Who? The Pentagon. Margaret picked up the phone. General Stone speaking. General, this is Admiral Richardson, Joint Chiefs of Staff. Admiral, heard about today. Outstanding performance. Thank you, sir. General, we need someone like you back. Homeland Security position. Interested? Margaret looked out the window. Students playing in the yard. Normal life resuming. Admiral, I appreciate the offer. But I'm needed here. At a high school. These children are my mission now. Protect the next generation. I understand, General. Margaret hung up, looked at her West Point ring. 26 years military service. 5 years education service. Same mission. Protect and serve. The next morning, Jefferson High School reopened. Margaret stood at the entrance, greeting students. But something had changed. Good morning, General Stone. Students called out. Good morning, Principal Stone. Staff corrected respectfully. Margaret smiled. She was both now, educator and protector. Miss Rodriguez approached. Margaret, students want to know, will you teach a military history class? Margaret considered. Maybe. If they're interested. They are. After yesterday, they see you differently. I hope they see me as someone who cares about them. They do. That afternoon, Margaret cleaned out her desk drawer, found old Army photos, her promotion to Brigadier General, Pentagon assignments, combat deployments. But she also found Jefferson High photos, student graduations, teacher appreciations, school improvements. 2 different careers, same person, same values. Margaret looked at her West Point ring. Inscription inside, duty, honor, country. She'd served her country in war. Now she served her country's future. Different battlefield, same mission. 3 months later, Jefferson High established the General Stone Leadership Program. Students learned military leadership principles applied to civilian life. Discipline, teamwork, service. Margaret still wore her West Point ring, but now everyone knew what it meant. Not stolen valor, earned honor. And when new teachers joined the staff, they asked about the ring with respect, not mockery. Principal Stone, tell us about your Army service. Margaret would smile. That was another life. This is my life now. But sometimes, when the situation required, that other life returned, and Jefferson High was safer for it. Because some soldiers never truly retire, they just find new missions. Margaret Ironstone, retired Brigadier General, active principal, eternal guardian. Do you think Margaret should have revealed her past earlier, or was she right to keep it secret? What would you have done in this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments.